What's up YouTube, this is Dennis Panuta for tutorialsEU. In this video we are going to check out Firebase Storage. So we are going to see how we can upload an image using Firebase Storage and also download the image back to our device. Alright, so let's get started. In this video you will learn how to use the Firebase storage system. So inside of Firebase there is this storage component which allows you to upload images to your Firebase project and then reuse them. So your users can, for example, upload images for, let's say, their profile image and product images if you have a product application, such as we do in our course, right? In our Firebase masterclass course, where you build a complete shop app. And in that particular example, you of course will need to upload a bunch of images. And we are going to look at how we can upload files to the Firebase storage with ease. So what you will need for that is a Firebase project. And I would recommend that you check out the video on Firebase authentication, because there we set up the whole Firebase project already. Let's look at what we're going to build here. So you can select an image, and I'm just going to select the image of this guitar, for example, and then you can press upload image in order to upload the image, and you will find the link to that image underneath as a new text view entry. This then of course allows you to reuse that link in your application later on. Okay, so what we are going to do is we're going to build this functionality, and you will need the Firebase project already created. So if you have not done that, as I said, check out the Firebase authentication demo video, or alternatively you can follow along this document that we have prepared, where you will find a step-by-step guide that guides you through all of the steps that are necessary for you to set up this project, which means the Android project as well as the Firebase project. And then at one point you will have the finished application. So we are going to jump in at the step where we need to follow along the code, which means in step 37 we will need to do a bunch of to-do steps, which you can find inside of the document that you can download as well, which is really an easy step-by-step instruction where you can just press on the to-do here and follow the steps one after the other. And that's what I'm going to do with you, so that you can just follow along in the video if you prefer that. And I'm going to explain a little bit of what's happening along the way. So as I said, I'm going to reuse my Firebase authentication demo, in which we looked at how to get the login activity, which then allows us to log into our Firebase application, as well as the register activity, which of course allows us to first of all register, and then the forgot password activity, which allows us to reset a password. But in this video, we're going to override the main activity, and we're going to focus on getting this screen here with all of the functionality it entails. So therefore, what I want to do is I want to go to the manifest here and make sure that I add a permission request here, because we are going to use this permission read external storage. Because if you want to upload something, you need to know what it is, right? And therefore we will get that from the external storage of the device. So images are stored on the external storage of the device, and that's where we get them from. That's why we need to add this line, otherwise our application won't work. Now let's make sure that we redesign our activity. So I'm going to get rid of all of the code that we had in the main activity so far. And in your case, if you create a new project, it will be empty anyways. And then I want to redesign the main activity. So let me do that real quick. All right, there we are. So this video assumes that you know how XML works and that you know how you can create your very own UI, and in this case this is going to be the UI that we're going to use. Okay, so we have this image view which is inside of a constrained layout. So this is our top layout here going all the way of our screen. Then inside of it we have this image view which has a width of 300 dp and the height of 300 dp. You could of course say that it should take however much space it needs, but for this particular example I want it to be always the same width and height. Then you have a little background that you can set up for this image view, and the content description, which allows someone who can't read to hear, at least, or if the phone reads it for them. This is relevant for blind people if they want to know what's going on in this screen, and we're just saying it's an image. Then in terms of scale type, I'm using fit XY. So it's just going to stretch the image and it's going to fit it into this format. So even if the image is not a square, it will then be forced to be in a square, and that won't look perfectly in many cases, but for this purpose it's fine, because that's not really what we're focusing on, right? And then we have this select image button, which just has this text select image. You can design it however you want. Then we have another button underneath it which says upload image. And then finally you have this little text view here, which will then display the complete text of our link where the image is stored. Okay, so right now it's going to display image upload success, at least in our tools here. So it's not going to display that when you are inside of the application itself, as you can see, because it says tools : text. Okay, so now we can go ahead and take care of the functionality that will allow us to actually request permissions. And therefore, inside of my main activities on create method, I would like to do something when we click on the select image button. So if you don't know which one it is, press Control, click on it. It's this one here. So once I click on that button, I want to do something. And what is it that I want to do? Well, I want to check if the user has already permission granted for that functionality, which means for the functionality to retrieve an image or not. And if he hasn't, then I want to request permission. So here we can check if the context compat dot check self permission, it's this one here, with this context, and here you need to pass in the string, and the string that you can pass is this one here, manifest permission read external storage. If that one is package manager dot permission granted, then I want to select the image. So I want the user to be able to select the image. So this means that this whole part here is on the left hand side of this double equation sign, and this part is on the right hand side. So basically we're saying we check the permission, and do we have the permission already, which says permission granted, for the read external storage permission. So if the user already granted storage permission to us, or read external storage, then we can select image. Okay, otherwise we need to request permission. And by the way, this video is just part of a complete course. This is part of the complete Firebase masterclass that I created, in which you will learn to build a complete shop app from scratch. So you're going to build all the components using Firebase and Firestore in order to build this amazing app. All right, so check out the link in the description where you will get the full course learning all of these things. Okay, so that's always how it works. If you already have the usage right, just go ahead and do it. Otherwise, ask for permission. And in order to ask for permission, we can just go ahead and say activity compat once again, activity compat. And here we just say request permission. And you can request a set of permissions. So you say here it's an array of strings. Okay, so you can ask multiple permissions. So we need to pass an array, and we're just going to pass an array with one entry only, which will be the manifest.permission.read external storage. Okay, it's this permission that I'm asking for. And then you need to pass in the request code. And I'm just going to assign my own code that I want to reuse, which will be 121. So if I get the response of 121, I will know, okay, this was the response for the request permissions request. Okay, so now we can go ahead and actually take care of catching this result of this request permission. So if the user asked for it, well, we want to display the request to the user. And if he answered with yes, then we will know, okay, we have the permission rights now. Otherwise, we will have to ask again in the future. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to use the on request permission results, which is the default way to do it. So now this will be called once you have permission results. Either it was granted or it wasn't granted. So if the user granted us the rights, cool. If not, then not cool. So here we can check if the request code, because if you look at it, this on request permission result will receive a request code which is an integer, which in our case should be the 121. So if it's going to be our 121, then we can check if it was cool and it worked. Otherwise, we will just display a toast, which will just say, oops, you just denied permissions. Okay, so I'm just going to use this toast, make text, oops, you just denied the permission for storage. You can also allow it from the settings. So the user could go to the settings and still allow it, but this is going to be the toast that will be displayed. And at this point, we can actually check it. We can now test our application. Let's see if it's going to do the magic that we want it to do. And therefore, of course, in my particular case, in your case, it might not be the case. So you might not have to do this, but I need to make sure that my register, or that my main activity actually, is the one that is the starting activity. So here I'm just going to set the intent filter with launcher to my main activity. So now let me rerun it so that it really starts in this activity where we can select an image. There we are. So now let me press select image, and you can see now it asks for permission. So I'm going to deny. And let me allow again, or ask again. And now if I allow, then it will allow me to basically select an image in the future. So now if I click select image, you see nothing happens. And that is because we already have granted permissions, which if you go up here is where we wanted to select the image. But before we select the image, what we should do is we will need to check what we want to do if the request code was 121, which was the permission to read external storage. And what I want to do here is I want to display the selection screen where the user can select an image. And in order to do so, I'm going to create this intent, which I'm going to call gallery intent. And the intent is called action pick. And action pick is, by the way, this action, which will pick an item from the data, returning what was selected. So I want to select, what is it specifically? Well, an image. So the media store images media external content URI. So I want to select an image, and then I need to start that activity for a result, because I want to start an activity with an intent, as I always do, but then I also want to receive a result, which was if the user has selected an image or not, for example. And if he has selected an image, then I want to display it, for example, or if he hasn't, then I just want to display something like you have not selected an image, or image selection failed, or something like that. And if you start an activity for a result where you are actually requesting or expecting a result, then you need to pass a request code. Okay, so I want to do the same thing when the user has received or has given permission results. So once he pressed OK, you can have the permission. And if he already gave permission before and I click on that button, so which will happen here. So if the permission was permission granted, then I also want to display that same thing, which means if we check it, I want to click on select image and then go over to this activity where I can then select an image. Now, of course, the image will not be displayed here because we didn't implement the code yet, but we will do so later on. Okay, so now we start the activity for result. And if you start an activity for result, you need to also get that result. And in order to get the result, you can use onActivity result. So activity result is this one here. You can see there is a request code, which will be the 222, for example, that we have passed. And the result code, which will be the result was okay, or the user canceled it, or something like that. And then the data, which will be the image itself. So what do we want to do here? Well, first of all, I'm going to check if the result was okay. So there are multiple different result codes that can be retrieved here. -1 is result okay. 0 was result canceled. So for example, if the user pressed the back button instead of selecting an image. So let me show you. So if I click here and I then click back and back, then I have canceled it, for example. Or if I click here and I select an image, then the result will be okay. So then this code will be triggered if the result was okay and I actually picked an image. But then if I have a successful result here, I also need to know where that result came from which request code. And in our case, it will be 222, which will be the start activity for result. And then I check the data itself. So the data that was passed to me, which means the image. Now at this point, things can go wrong. So I'm just going to surround this with a try and catch block, and the catch block will be an IO exception, so an input output exception, because there could be something wrong with the input of the image or something like that. Okay, and what I'm going to do if there was an error, I'm just going to say image selection failed to, well, via a toast. I'm going to display this to the user. Now at this case, or at this point, I will need to know where the image is stored that I have selected. So for example, if I select an image here, this image here has a link on the file system of the device. So like, for example, this image or this file here, if I show it in Explorer, you can see that it has a very specific URI. So this is the link where the file is. This is the URI. And I want to know where the image that I have selected is, because I don't want to store the image inside of here. I just want to make a reference. I just want to show, okay, this is where the image is, and please display that image. Okay, so I'm just going to create a new global variable, which will be a URI, basically the link, right? The direction or directory where the image is. I'm going to set that to null, because it's going to be a nullable. And then I want to assign a value to it later on. And where would that be? Well, once I have selected the image. So that means inside of my onActivityResult function, I want to then assign the value of the data dot data. So the data itself will be the image, so to speak. Retrieve the data that is intent is operating on. Okay, I want to get the data itself, or the link of the data, which will be saved in that URI. And now I can go ahead and use my image view, which if you look at it is this image view here. So basically this gray block here. And I want to assign this image that I've just selected. And this is very simple. You can do it via set image URI, and you can now pass the URI directly to it. So selected image file URI. Okay, so now at this point we can try it again and see if this is actually going to display the image, because this is just the part where we don't even do any uploading, right? So select image, select the bicycle, and you see the bicycle was assigned. Okay, so now let's get to the actual part where we want to use the Firestore functionality, where we want to upload something to Firestore. And therefore you need to go to your build.gradle file, and here specifically to the app file. And you need to make sure that you are adding this line here. Let me show you this one here. So com.google.firebase:/firebase-storage-ktx. So you need to have this line implemented, and then you need to sync now. Click on the sync now button. And once it is synced, you will now be able to use the Firebase storage in your application by calling its classes and methods, for example. Now at this point, we can go ahead and once we click on the upload image button, which will be this button here, upload image, which has this ID button underscore upload underscore image. Once we click on that, we want to upload the image. Okay, so here inside of our onCreate method, and underneath this button select image on click listener, I'm going to use button upload image set on click listener, and here I will check if the URI that I have stored in selected file URI is not equal null. And if that's the case, I will need to know the extension of the file itself. So for example, if I use an image, it's very often either a JPEG or is a PNG file. Okay, so I will use this code to get the file type. So here I'm going to call this variable image extension. And how to get that is by using this MIME type map class and its function called get singleton, and then get the extension from MIME type. And here I need to pass a content resolver get type selected image file URI. And here we can force unwrap it because it's not null. we checked it at this point, right? So now we know we have an image and we know its extension, because if you upload an image to Firebase, you need to tell it under which extension type it should store it. And then I can go ahead and get the Firebase storage reference, and I will need that in order to put anything up there. So I can do it this way. As reference is the name that I'm going to give it, and it will be a storage reference. Now, as you see, it's coming from com.google.firebase.storage. So there is this class called storage reference, and I can get it using the Firebase storage dot get instance. So here again, I need to import Firebase storage, and here this get instance will now allow me to get the instance of the folder where I can upload something. So I need to pass in the child, which will be the name of the file. So I'm going to give it the name of image, empty space, plus system.current, and it's underscore, or it's a uncapitalized one, current time milliseconds, which is the method. And here I'm going to add a dot as well as the file type. So here image extension. And of course we need to add a plus here. So this is going to be the storage reference, which means the name of the file itself. Okay, so I want to give the whole file a name, of course, and then I can go ahead and put that file online. And which file am I going to put up online? Well, I'm going to put my selected image file URI online, and this one is a nullable, so I need to force unwrap it here. And this can go wrong and this can go right. So if it was successful, so here I'm using the add-on success listener, which will be called if we were successful, and this will return a task snapshot. And I can now use this snapshot to get the download URL. Okay, so I use the task snapshot, I get the metadata, I get the reference, and then I want to specifically have the download URL, so the link where the image is stored. Okay, so then I'm just going to have another add-on success listener, because this is actually a task where I want to get something from Firebase. So I'm requesting something from the internet, and this could of course go wrong, for example, if I don't have internet. And if it did go right, what I'm going to use is the URL that this add-on success listener can return. So there are multiple overloads here with this add-on success listener, and one of them is going to return something to me, which will be of type URL. So I'm just going to say the URL that you give me, I want to use it. And where do I want to use it? I want to use it at the point where I'm storing my image success.text, and I'm going to say your image was uploaded successfully, and then the URL itself. And I'm going to use the URL this way. And if it failed, well, then let's just display something like a toast saying something went wrong, and we're going to add a log entry as well. Okay, so this is all of the code that happens if the selected image URI wasn't empty, so wasn't null. But if it was null, then I'm just going to display something like please select the image to upload, because at this point we know that user hasn't selected an image to upload. Okay, so this is the whole code this here, where you first of all prepare your image extension, then you get the storage reference from your Firebase storage, and then you can put the file online. So this is how you can put the file online. Okay, let me run this and see if we can now actually upload an image by pressing the upload button, because that's exactly where we had this, right? Button, upload image, set on click listener. And now before we can use our storage, there's one important thing that we need to take into consideration, and that is that we need to get started with storage. So here in Firebase, go to storage in your Firebase application, and then get started. So here you can define the rules for your images on your storage or your files on the storage, and then you can select the cloud location. I'm going to use Europe West here, and be aware that you cannot change your location afterwards. I'm going to make sure that I'm using the location where most of my users will be. So if they are in America, for example, then you should use the US Central. If they're somewhere else, well, you will have to select the right location. This will improve the download times and the speed in general, and then press done. Once that is done, your storage will be set up after a couple of seconds. And then you will see that here you have your storage screen where you have your files as well as your rules. So here you can change your rules, you can edit them. Therefore, you should check out the docs here. I'm not going to cover this in this video. And you can also see the usage. So how many bytes were uploaded, downloaded, how many requests were there, and so forth. Okay, so now let's upload our image that we have selected. Let me select an image once again, just for the process here. I'm going to select this image of the Galaxy Fold 2, and I'm going to upload the image. And you can see this is the link where it was stored in my case. Now let me refresh this page, and I should see that now there is this image. And you can see this is the image, and it has the name image, empty space, and then the current time in milliseconds. So it's the time right now, which is the 26th of October in milliseconds. And .jpeg, which is the file type in the end. You can also see here, type is JPEG, and the size is 43 kilobytes. So let me open up this file, and you can see it's this file that we just uploaded, this image. And if I click on it, you can see this is the image in its full glory by my smart price, as it seems. And this is how you can use Firebase Storage to upload files to Firebase, in our case, specifically images. All right, so now you know how to use the Firebase storage system in order to store your images, in this example, in the cloud. And if you want to know how to build a complete application using Firebase, check out the link in the description where we are going to build a complete shop app from scratch using Firebase and to store the data of our users who, for example, sell the products in our application, and then we display those products for other users to buy them. So a complete shop app basically, and you can get a huge discount if you check out the link in the description and use it to buy the course. All right, so I hope to see you there. Otherwise, check out one of those two videos.